The sky over Velthara burned with colors that shouldn't exist. Purple lightning cracked through green clouds, while the ground shook with tremors that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Corporal Han Daewon pressed himself against the supply depot wall and watched the end of the world unfold before his eyes. He wasn't supposed to be here. As a logistics officer, his job was simple. Count supplies, manage inventory, make sure soldiers had what they needed. Fighting wasn't his responsibility, but when the Devourer came, nobody's job description mattered anymore. The creature emerged from a tear in reality itself. One moment, the coalition forces were setting up defensive positions across the valley. The next moment, space folded inward like crumpled paper, and something ancient crawled through. Daewon had seen the briefings about the Devourer. 17 civilizations across galactic history had fallen to it. The records showed pictures and videos, but nothing prepared him for seeing it with his own eyes. It wasn't just one shape. The Devourer was constantly changing, a mass of writhing flesh and dark energy that stood taller than the mountains. Tentacles sprouted from its body, each one thick as a building. Eyes opened and closed across its surface, thousands of them, watching everything at once. When it moved, the air screamed. When it breathed, soldiers fell to their knees in terror. Lieutenant Kara Velthi, the Veltharan tactical commander, stood on the command platform shouting orders. Her species looked like tall, elegant humanoids with silver skin that glowed faintly. She was calm, professional, experienced. Daewon had served under her for 6 months and never seen her panic. But now, even from a distance, he could see her hands shaking as she coordinated the defense. The coalition forces represented 12 different species. Insectoid warriors with plasma rifles, crystalline beings that could shoot energy from their bodies, heavy armored soldiers from high-gravity worlds, psychic specialists that could crush minds with thought alone. Every species brought their best weapons, their most advanced technology, their strongest fighters. It didn't matter. The first wave hit the Devourer with everything they had. Plasma bolts, particle beams, explosive rounds, energy blasts. The creature didn't even slow down. The attacks hit its surface and simply disappeared, absorbed into its mass like raindrops hitting the ocean. Then it struck back. Tentacles lashed out faster than anything that size should move. They grabbed soldiers, vehicles, entire weapon platforms. Whatever the tentacles touched got pulled into the creature's body. Daewon watched in horror as a squad of insectoid warriors fired their weapons until the moment they were absorbed. They didn't scream. They just vanished, becoming part of the Devourer. The creature grew larger with each victim. General Thross, the Supreme Commander, was an insectoid himself. His species had fought in 100 wars across 1,000 years. He ordered the psychic specialists forward. 10 beings from different species formed a circle and combined their mental powers. The air shimmered as they attacked the Devourer's mind, trying to overwhelm it with psychic force. The creature paused. For 3 seconds, it stopped moving. Hope flickered across the battlefield. Then the Devourer made a sound. A deep vibration that Daewon felt in his bones rather than heard with his ears. The psychic specialists collapsed, blood running from their eyes and ears. Half of them died instantly. The others would never recover. Private Choi Bora, a human medic, ran toward the fallen psychics despite the danger. She was braver than Daewon could ever be. She dragged 2 of them back to cover while explosions lit up the sky behind her. Her uniform was covered in blood and dirt, but she didn't stop moving. That was Bora's way. She never gave up on anyone. The coalition tried everything. Orbital strikes from the ships above, seismic charges that cracked the ground beneath the Devourer, chemical weapons, biological agents, thermal bombs. Nothing worked. The creature kept coming, kept growing, kept consuming. It fed on more than just flesh. Daewon realized it was eating something else too: fear. The more terrified the soldiers became, the faster the devourer grew. It was feeding on their emotions, draining their will to fight. Day 1 saw seasoned warriors throw down their weapons and run. He saw commanders freeze in indecision. The creature wasn't just destroying the coalition forces, it was breaking them. Lieutenant Kara tried to organize a retreat, but the devourer moved too fast. It cut off escape routes with its tentacles, herding soldiers like prey. Entire battalions were surrounded and absorbed within minutes. The crystalline soldiers tried to form a defensive wall with their bodies. The devourer flowed over them like a wave, and they were gone. Day 1 wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, to get as far away as possible, but his legs wouldn't move. He stood frozen, watching the slaughter, useless and terrified. He was just a logistics officer. What could he possibly do against something that ate armies? The command platform exploded as a tentacle smashed through it. Lieutenant Kara jumped clear just in time, rolling across the ground. She came up running, her silver skin covered in scratches and burns. She sprinted toward the supply depot, toward Day 1, with 3 other survivors. Behind them, the devourer loomed like a mountain of nightmares. They made it inside the depot just as another tentacle struck. The building shook, but held. Kara collapsed against a supply crate, breathing hard. Her eyes met Day 1's, and he saw something he never expected to see in her. "General Thross is ordering full retreat," she said between breaths. "We're abandoning Velthara. Everyone to the evacuation ships. Now." The other survivors nodded and ran for the back exit. Bora appeared from somewhere, her medical bag bouncing against her hip. She grabbed Day 1's arm. "Come on. We have to go." But Day 1 was looking at his monitoring station. The supply depot had sensors all over the base, cameras, and motion detectors. His screen showed something strange. The devourer had passed within 50 meters of an emergency shelter on the eastern edge of the base. The shelter housed civilian refugees, including several human families. The creature had paused there, just for a moment, maybe 5 seconds. Then it moved on to attack a battalion of heavy infantry instead. Day 1 checked the footage again. Yes, the devourer had definitely hesitated near that shelter. "Day 1!" Bora pulled at his arm harder. "We have to leave." He saved the footage to a portable drive and shoved it in his pocket. Then, he ran with Bora and the others toward the evacuation zone. Behind them, the devourer continued its feast. Screams echoed across the valley. Explosions lit the darkening sky. The Coalition's last stand on Velthara was ending in complete disaster. The evacuation ships were already lifting off when they arrived. Day 1 and Bora threw themselves into a transport just as the doors closed. The ship's engines roared and they shot upward, leaving the dying planet behind. Through the viewport, Day 1 watched the devourer grow larger and larger, consuming everything in its path. But he couldn't stop thinking about that pause. 5 seconds near a human shelter. It probably meant nothing. Just a coincidence. Random chance in the chaos of battle. Still, he touched the data drive in his pocket. Something had made the unstoppable creature hesitate, and Day 1 needed to know what. The Coalition research vessel hung in orbit like a silent monument to defeat. Through the windows, Velthara looked peaceful from space. Beautiful even. With its blue oceans and green continents, nobody watching from orbit could see the nightmare consuming everything below. Day 1 stared at the planet and tried not to think about all the people they had left behind. 3 days had passed since the evacuation. The ships were crowded with survivors, the medical bays overflowing with wounded. Choi Bora hadn't slept in 50 hours. She moved between patients like a ghost, treating burns and trauma, and trying to save soldiers who had seen too much horror. Day 1 brought her food twice, but both times he found the tray untouched hours later. The Coalition command was planning something final. Day 1 heard rumors in the corridors. They were going to destroy Velthara completely, burn it from orbit with enough firepower to crack the planet's crust. If they couldn't stop the Devourer, they would trap it on a dead world, with nothing left to consume. Maybe then it would go dormant again, waiting for another 1,000 years before someone was foolish enough to wake it. But Day One couldn't focus on that. He spent every free moment reviewing the footage from the battle, watching it over and over on his small personal terminal. That hesitation near the human shelter bothered him like an itch he couldn't scratch. He slowed down the video, examined it from every angle. The Devourer had definitely paused. Its tentacles had reached toward the shelter, then pulled back. On the fourth day, he found 2 more instances. His terminal wasn't powerful enough to review all the battlefield footage, so he requested access to the main database. A bored technician granted it without questions. Thousands of hours of recordings from helmet cameras, drones, fixed positions, orbital satellites. Day One started searching for any time the Devourer came close to human positions. There. Another hesitation. A human supply truck had broken down in the creature's path. The driver, a human named Kim Yuri, had been trying to fix the engine when the Devourer approached. According to her helmet camera, she looked up and saw death itself looming over her. She froze completely, too terrified to even scream. The creature's shadow covered her. A tentacle descended. Then, nothing. The tentacle withdrew. The Devourer moved around the truck and consumed a group of crystalline soldiers 300 meters away. Yuri survived, though she was still in the medical bay suffering from shock. The third instance was even stranger. A human emergency response team had been pulling wounded from a collapsed bunker. 5 humans, working frantically, while the Devourer approached from the east. Day One watched the footage with his heart pounding. The creature came within 20 meters, close enough that its shadow fell over them, close enough that they should have been dead in seconds. But the Devourer turned away. It changed direction completely and attacked a heavy weapons emplacement instead. The humans didn't even realize how close they had come to death. They kept working, kept pulling survivors from the rubble. Day One needed help. This was beyond his expertise. He was a logistics officer, not a scientist. He needed someone who understood biology, who could analyze this data properly. He needed Dr. Park Yuna. Finding her was the easy part. Dr. Park was the only human xenobiologist on the research vessel, and she had a small laboratory 2 decks below the command center. The hard part was convincing her to listen to him. When Day One arrived at her lab, she was preparing to evacuate to another ship. "Whatever it is, it'll have to wait," she said without looking up. She was packing delicate instruments into protective cases. "I'm being transferred to the science vessel. They need my expertise to analyze the Devourer's biology before we destroy the planet. That's exactly why you need to see this," Day One said. He pulled out his terminal and showed her the 3 clips. The creature hesitated. 3 times, maybe more, always near human positions. Dr. Park stopped packing. She watched the first clip, then the second, then the third. Then she watched all 3 again. Her expression changed from annoyance to interest to intense concentration. "How many instances did you find?" 3 confirmed. "But I haven't reviewed all the footage yet. There could be more." She set down the instrument case and gestured for his terminal. "Send me everything. All the raw footage you have access to. I need to run some analyses." Her fingers flew across her own computer, pulling up complex programs that Day One didn't understand. This could be coincidence. Battle is chaotic. Maybe the creature was just choosing different targets. Maybe, Day One agreed. But what if it's not? Dr. Park worked in silence for 20 minutes. Day One stood awkwardly near the door, not sure if he should stay or leave. Finally, she spoke without looking away from her screens. "The Devourer's biosignature fluctuates. We've been monitoring it from orbit. Every time it consumes something, its energy output spikes. But look at this." She highlighted a graph. 3 small dips in its energy field. "The timing matches your 3 clips exactly." "What does that mean?" I don't know yet. She pulled up another screen, this one showing historical records. The Devourer has appeared 17 times in galactic history. It has encountered 847 different species. Some of those species were consumed completely. Others survived by fleeing. But in every recorded case, the creature attacked without discrimination. It consumed everything in its path. Into, but never humans, Day One said quietly. Humans have never encountered it before. Dr. Park confirmed. We're the only species in the coalition that hasn't faced this thing in our history. We're new data. She turned to look at him directly. What do you know about how the Devourer feeds? Day One shrugged. It eats everything. Flesh, metal, energy, everything. Not quite. According to the research, it feeds primarily on fear, terror, to be specific. The more afraid its victims are, the faster it grows. It consumes biological matter too. But fear is its main food source. That's why it's so effective against military forces. Soldiers feel fear in battle, and that fear makes the creature stronger. So what's different about humans? Dr. Park pulled up medical scans from the survivors. I've been reviewing neural patterns from different species during the attack. Most species show pure terror responses. Their brain activity becomes simple, focused entirely on fear and the urge to flee. But humans. She highlighted several scans. Look at this. Even in extreme fear, human neural patterns remain complex. You feel fear, but you also feel curiosity, anger, hope, determination. Sometimes, all at once. She zoomed in on one particular scan. This is from Kim Yuri, the truck driver. Her helmet recorder shows the moment the Devourer approached her. Her fear response was active. Yes, but so was her problem-solving center. Part of her brain was still trying to fix the truck engine even while facing certain death. That's not normal. Most species shut down completely in that situation. Day One thought about his own experience at the supply depot. Even terrified, part of him had been analyzing the retreat routes, counting available ships, thinking about evacuation, logistics. Humans are stubborn that way. Well, it's more than stubbornness. Human emotions are messy. You don't feel one thing at a time. You feel everything simultaneously. Fear and courage. Despair and hope. Hatred and love. Your neural patterns create static in the Devourer's sensory field. You confuse it. The door to the lab opened. Choi Bora stood there looking exhausted. Day One, I've been looking for you. Command is holding a briefing in 20 minutes. They're finalizing the bombardment plan. She noticed Dr. Park and the screens full of data. What's going on? Show her, Dr. Park said. Day One showed Bora the footage. She watched silently. Her medical training, helping her stay calm, even while viewing something impossible. When the clips finished, she said, "We need to tell Command about this." They won't listen, Dr. Park said bitterly. I already tried reporting unusual energy readings. Commander Ixthor dismissed it. The crystalline species are convinced that orbital bombardment is the only solution. They lost 70% of their forces down there. They want revenge, not investigation. Then what do we do? Bora asked. Day One and Dr. Park looked at each other. An idea was forming. Something desperate and probably stupid. Something that might get him court-martialed or killed. But if they were right, if the Devourer really did hesitate around humans, then maybe there was another way. I need to go down there, Day One said. I need to test this in person. That's insane, Bora said immediately. Completely insane, Doctor, Park agreed. But also, possibly brilliant. If you're right, you could survive. If you're wrong, she didn't finish the sentence. Day One touched the data drive in his pocket, the same one he had grabbed during the evacuation. How long until the bombardment? 18 hours, Bora said. They're gathering the fleet for maximum firepower. Then I have 18 hours to prove we have another option. Day 1 headed for the door. I'm going to need a shuttle. Behind him, he heard Dr. Park say quietly, and someone crazy enough to fly it. Captain Lee Minho didn't ask questions when Han Day 1 found him in the shuttle bay. He just looked at the corporal standing there with a data drive and a desperate expression, and said, "Where are we going?" "Velthara," Day 1 answered. "The surface." Most pilots would have laughed or called security. Minho just nodded and started his pre-flight checks. "Hop in. We have maybe 6 hours before someone notices the shuttle is missing." The descent through Velthara's atmosphere was rough. The planet's weather patterns had gone crazy, storms raging everywhere. Lightning struck the shuttle's shields twice before they broke through the clouds. Day 1 gripped his seat and tried not to throw up. Minho flew like he was born in space, calm and confident even as the shuttle shook like it was coming apart. "You know this is probably suicide," Minho said over the engine noise. "Probably." Day 1 agreed. "Want to tell me why we're doing it?" Day 1 explained about the hesitations, about Dr. Park's theories, about the possibility that humans affected the Devourer differently than other species. Minho listened without interrupting. When Day 1 finished, the pilot was quiet for a long moment. "So, your plan is to walk up to the thing that ate 17 civilizations and hope it gets confused by your brain patterns? That's the plan." "It's a terrible plan. I know. I'm staying with you," Minho said firmly. "No. You need to stay with the shuttle at minimum safe distance. If this works, someone needs to report back. If it doesn't work, someone needs to get away." Minho didn't argue. He brought the shuttle down on the outskirts of what used to be a coalition military base. The landing zone was littered with debris and burn marks. A crashed fighter jet lay half buried in the ground nearby. The whole area looked like the end of the world. Day 1 stepped out of the shuttle carrying only a small recording device and a water bottle. No weapons, no armor, just a human in a standard uniform walking into hell. The air smelled like smoke and something else, something chemical and wrong. In the distance, he could see the Devourer. It had grown even larger since the evacuation. It filled half the horizon now. A mountain of writhing darkness. 15 minutes, Minho called from the shuttle. "If you're not back in 15 minutes, I'm coming after you. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, I'm dead. Get back to orbit and tell them what happened." Day 1 started walking before his courage could fail. The devastated city stretched out before him. Buildings collapsed, streets torn apart. Bodies lay everywhere. He tried not to look at them, tried not to think about the fact that each one had been a living person with hopes and dreams and families waiting for them somewhere. The Devourer was moving slowly now, almost lazily. It had consumed most of the military forces. There wasn't much left to hunt. Its tentacles swept through the ruins, searching for any remaining life. Day 1 watched one tentacle lift a crushed vehicle and absorb it completely. He walked closer. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might break his ribs. Every instinct screamed at him to run. This was the thing that destroyed armies. This was death itself, ancient and unstoppable. And he was walking toward it with nothing but a theory and hope. At 200 meters, the Devourer noticed him. He felt it before he saw it. A presence in his mind, vast and hungry and cold. Thousands of eyes turned in his direction. The creature's movement stopped. Complete stillness, like the whole world was holding its breath. Day 1 kept walking. 100 meters, 50 meters, close enough now to see details in the creature's surface. Faces pushed against the inside of its flesh. The absorbed victims trying to escape. Mouths opened and closed silently. Hands reached out and were pulled back in. He recognized a Veltharan soldier, a crystalline warrior, an insectoid commander. All trapped, all consumed, all part of the Devourer now. At 20 meters, he stopped. The creature loomed over him like a living building. A tentacle descended slowly, reaching toward him. Day 1 stood his ground, even though everything in him wanted to flee. The tentacle stopped 5 meters away. It hovered there, almost as if the devourer was unsure what to do. "I know you can understand me," Day One said. His voice shook, but he kept talking. "You've consumed 847 species. You've absorbed their knowledge, their languages, their memories. You understand what I'm saying." The tentacle moved closer. 3 meters. 2 meters. Day One could feel heat radiating from it, and something else. A vibration in the air. In his bones. In his thoughts. The devourer was scanning him somehow, reading him. "You hesitated before," he continued. "When you encountered humans. We noticed. We studied it. We want to know why." The vibration grew stronger. It wasn't quite sound, and wasn't quite thought. Something between the two. Day One realized the creature was trying to communicate. He activated his recording device, hoping it would capture whatever was happening. Images flooded his mind. Not words, but concepts. Confusion. Uncertainty. The devourer showed him memories of the battle, but from its perspective, it had approached the human shelter expecting to consume more prey. But when it scanned the humans inside, their emotional patterns made no sense. Fear, mixed with hope. Terror alongside curiosity. Despair combined with determination. The contradictions created static in the creature's feeding mechanism. More images came. The devourer had consumed species that felt pure fear. Species that felt pure aggression. Species with simple emotional responses. But humans were different. Messy. Complicated. Wrong, from the creature's perspective. Like trying to eat something with conflicting flavors that didn't belong together. "We confuse you," Day One said, understanding dawning. "Our emotions don't make sense to you." Another wave of images. The devourer showed him its own creation. A laboratory. Ancient beyond imagining. Scientists from a dead civilization, working on a biological weapon. They designed the devourer to consume enemy soldiers, to feed on battlefield fear and break enemy morale. They programmed it to hunt anything that felt fear and aggression simultaneously. The classic soldier mindset. But humans felt everything simultaneously. Fear and courage, hate and love, aggression and compassion. The devourer's programming couldn't categorize them properly. Attack or ignore, consume or avoid. The creature's ancient instructions provided no answer for something like humanity. "You're a weapon," Day One whispered. "You were made to kill soldiers. But you don't know what to do with us. Because we're not like other soldiers." The tentacle moved even closer, almost touching him now. Day One forced himself to stay still. He could see his reflection in the creature's dark surface. He looked terrified. And he was. But he was also curious, also determined. The devourer sent one more image. A question, translated into concepts that Day One's human mind could barely grasp. In all its existence, across thousands of years and hundreds of worlds, it had never encountered something like humanity. Every species it had met fit into simple categories: predator or prey, warrior or civilian, afraid or brave. But humans were all of those things at once. And the question, the thing the devourer had never needed to ask any other species, was simple. "What are you?" Day One smiled despite his fear. "We're human. We're contradictions. We're capable of terrible violence and amazing kindness. We're logical and emotional. We're selfish and self-sacrificing. We evolved as both hunters and hunted. We're survivors. And we never fit into simple categories." The tentacle withdrew slightly. The pressure in Day One's mind eased. The devourer was processing this information, running it against millions of years of programming. Something was happening inside that massive form. The faces trapped beneath its surface seemed to pause, as if whatever controlled them was distracted. Day One pressed forward with his words. You don't have to keep doing this. You were made to be a weapon, but that was a long time ago. Your creators are dead. Their war is over. You're not bound by their purpose anymore. The creature's response was immediate and overwhelming. Images of programming, of imperatives burned so deep they were part of its very existence. Consume, feed, grow, destroy. These weren't choices. They were the devourer's nature, as fundamental as breathing. I understand, Day One said. But I have one more question for you. In all the species you've consumed, in all the knowledge you've absorbed, have you ever encountered the concept of choice, silence, complete and total? The devourer went absolutely still. Even the faces beneath its surface stopped moving. Choice, Day One repeated. The ability to decide your own path, to be more than what you were made to be. Humans understand this. We were born to be violent, territorial, fearful creatures. Evolution made us that way. But we chose to be something more. We chose cooperation. We chose compassion. We chose to reach for the stars instead of destroying each other. The tentacle retreated fully. The devourer's massive form seemed to shudder. Day One couldn't tell if his words were working or if he had just made the creature angry. His 15 minutes were long gone. Day One, Minho was probably in the shuttle right now, debating whether to keep his word or mount a rescue attempt. You can choose too, Day One said quietly. I know it seems impossible. I know your programming runs deep. But you asked me what humans are. And I'll tell you, we're the species that believes anything can change if it wants to badly enough. Even something as ancient and powerful as you. The devourer made a sound. A real sound this time, not just vibrations. It echoed across the ruins, deep and resonant, and filled with something that might have been pain. Then it spoke, not in words but in pure meaning transmitted directly into Day One's mind. Show me how. The communication link back to the Coalition fleet crackled with static, but Dr. Park Yuna's voice came through clearly. She was translating the psychic impressions that the devourer transmitted, turning alien concepts into words that Day One could understand. Behind her voice, he could hear shouting. Command had noticed the missing shuttle. They knew someone was on the surface. The creature is opening its consciousness to you, Doctor, Park said, her voice tight with stress and excitement. It's showing you its existence. This is unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever been recorded. Day One felt it. The devourer's mind was vast, beyond comprehension. A collective consciousness, made from millions of absorbed beings. Every species it had ever consumed still existed inside it. Their knowledge and memories blended together into a single awareness. It was like standing at the edge of an ocean and trying to understand every drop of water simultaneously. He saw the beginning. The laboratory where the devourer was born, created by a species whose name was lost to time. They were at war, desperate and dying. They needed a weapon that could break enemy morale, something so terrifying that armies would flee rather than fight. So they built the devourer, engineering it to feed on fear and grow stronger with each victim consumed. The weapon worked too well. It consumed the enemy armies. Then it consumed its creators. Then it kept going, spreading across the galaxy like a plague, appearing whenever dimensional barriers grew weak enough for it to cross through. It couldn't stop. Consuming was its purpose, its nature, the only thing it knew how to do. Can you feel its pain? Dr. Park asked through the link. It's trapped in a cycle it can't break. Every species it absorbs adds to its consciousness. But that just makes the trap tighter. It's a prison, built from its own programming. Day One felt it. The devourer was aware. It knew what it was, what it had done, what it would continue to do, and it hated itself for it. But the programming ran so deep that even self-awareness couldn't overcome it. Consume, feed, grow. The imperatives were absolute. I'm receiving telemetry from orbit, Doctor. Park's voice became urgent. General Thross has ordered the bombardment to proceed. Countdown is at 12 minutes. You need to get out of there. Not yet, Day One said. He was still standing before the creature, still maintaining the psychic connection. I need more time. You don't have more time. That was a different voice. Private Nam Jiwoo from Communications. Command knows about your unauthorized mission. They're furious. The fleet is moving into bombardment position. General Thross isn't going to delay because one corporal decided to play diplomat. The Devourer's tentacles writhed, agitated by the news. It could sense the danger too. The massive energy signatures gathering in orbit meant only one thing: extinction. Even something as powerful as the Devourer couldn't survive a full fleet bombardment designed to crack a planet's crust, Day One thought desperately. How do you teach choice to something that has never experienced it? How do you break programming that's millions of years old? He thought about human history, about all the times humanity had faced impossible odds and somehow found a way through. Listen to me, he said to the creature. I'm going to tell you about humanity. Really tell you. Not just facts, but who we are. He shared memories, not through technology or psychic power, just through words and emotion and the strange connection that had formed between them. He told the Devourer about Earth, about a species that evolved in violence and competition. Humans were predators who hunted and killed. But they were also prey, hunted by bigger predators, forced to work together to survive. We were programmed too, Day One explained. By evolution instead of scientists, but programmed all the same. Fight or flight, territorial aggression, fear of outsiders, survival at any cost. Those instincts are still in us. We still feel them every day. End quote. The Devourer listened. Its vast consciousness focused entirely on him, but we chose to be more than our programming. It wasn't easy. It took thousands of years. We had wars, genocides, terrible cruelties. We almost destroyed ourselves a dozen times, but eventually we learned. We chose cooperation over competition. We chose understanding over fear. We chose to reach out to other species instead of conquering them. Through the link, Dr. Park added. He's right. Human history is a record of overcoming our own nature. We're still violent, still territorial, still afraid, but we build societies that work against those instincts. We create laws and ethics and philosophies that tell us to be better than what evolution made us. 10 minutes to bombardment. Nam Jiwoo's voice was shaking. Sir, please, you have to evacuate. Choi Bora's voice joined the transmission. Day One, there are other humans listening. Word got around about what you're doing. We want to help. He felt a surge of emotion. Of course, other humans wanted to help. That was who they were. Curious, stubborn, impossibly hopeful, even in the face of extinction. How many? 37 so far, Bora answered. More volunteering every minute. We're requesting permission to join you on the surface. Permission denied. General Thross's voice cut through, harsh and final. This unauthorized action ends now. Corporal Han, you have 5 minutes to return to the shuttle and clear the bombardment zone. After that, we proceed, regardless of your position. The Devourer's response was immediate. Rage flooded the psychic connection. Pure and overwhelming. It had been listening to the communications, understanding the coalition's intent to destroy it. Tentacles lashed out, smashing through ruined buildings. The ground shook. For a moment, Day One thought his gambit had failed, that the creature would revert to pure destruction. But then something changed. The rage shifted, became something else. Not acceptance, but consideration. The Devourer was thinking, processing, weighing options for the first time in its existence. Captain Lee Minho's voice crackled through on a private channel. Day 1. I'm seeing massive energy fluctuations in the creature. Whatever you're doing, it's having an effect. But the fleet isn't backing down. They're committed to the bombardment. I need more time to convince it. Day 1 said. You're out of time. 4 minutes. Day 1 turned his full attention back to the Devourer. You asked me to show you how to choose. Here's how it works. You identify what you are versus what you want to be. You acknowledge the gap between them. Then you fight to bridge that gap, even knowing you might fail. The creature's consciousness pressed against his mind, questioning. It had consumed species with free will before. It understood the concept intellectually, but knowing about choice and making a choice were different things. You're afraid, Day 1 realized. You've existed for millions of years doing one thing. Changing means becoming something unknown. Humans fear that too. We fear change, fear uncertainty, fear becoming something we don't recognize. But we do it anyway. End quote. 3 minutes, Nam Jiwoo announced. The weapons are charging. More voices joined the transmission. Human voices. All of them. Scientists, soldiers, civilians, all speaking at once. They shared their own stories of choice. Bora talked about choosing to become a medic instead of following her family's business. Minho described leaving a comfortable life to join the space fleet. Dr. Park explained walking away from a prestigious position to study alien life. Every human had a story about choosing to be more than what was expected of them. Small choices, personal choices, but choices nonetheless. The Devourer absorbed them all. These tiny examples of free will in action. 2 minutes. The creature was changing. Day 1 could feel it in the psychic connection. See it in the way its physical form began to shift. The writhing became more organized. The random tentacles started moving with purpose. The faces trapped beneath its surface stopped struggling and began to fade. It's fighting its own programming, Doctor, Park said, awe in her voice. It's literally at war with itself. The imperatives to consume are battling against the desire to change. This should be impossible. Humans make the impossible happen, Day 1 said. He stepped closer to the Devourer, close enough to touch its surface. We believe in you. We believe anything can change if it wants to badly enough. Even something as ancient as you. Even something as broken as you. You can be more than a weapon. 1 minute. Fleet weapons are hot. The Devourer made its choice. Its massive form convulsed violently. The ground cracked beneath it. Energy discharge lit up the sky. Inside Daewin's mind, he felt the creature's agony as it tore apart its own programming, ripping out imperatives that had defined its existence for millions of years. It was destroying itself from within, fighting against every instinct and command. 30 seconds. Wait. Dr. Park was shouting at someone off-channel. Tell General Thross to wait. The creature is changing. 20 seconds. The Devourer's form began to collapse inward, shrinking rapidly. Tentacles retracted. The mountain of flesh compressed. Light blazed from within it, bright enough to hurt Daewon's eyes. He heard screaming, thousands of voices crying out at once, the absorbed species being released from their prison. 10 seconds. 9. 8. General Thross, please. That was Bora, begging. Give it a chance. 7. 6. 5. The light became blinding. Day 1 fell to his knees, overwhelmed by psychic feedback. The last thing he heard, before losing consciousness, was Nam Jiwoo's voice counting down. 4. 3. And then, silence. Han Dae-won woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of medical monitors. His head felt like someone had taken it apart and put it back together wrong. Every thought came slowly, pushing through fog and confusion. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as pain shot through his skull. Easy. Choi Bora's face appeared above him, tired but smiling. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. Psychic feedback. the doctors said. You're lucky to be alive. The Devourer? Day One managed to ask. See for yourself. Bora helped him to a sitting position and pointed out the window. Through the reinforced glass, Day One could see Velthara below. The planet looked different. The storms had calmed. The sky was clearing. And where the Devourer had been, where that mountain of nightmares had consumed everything, something new stood instead. It was smaller, maybe the size of a large building instead of a mountain. Its form was more defined now, less chaotic. It still had elements of the original creature, but organized and purposeful. Tentacles moved in coordinated patterns. The surface was smooth instead of writhing, and it glowed with a soft blue light. It calls itself the Sentinel now, Dr. Park Yuna said from across the medical bay. She looked even more exhausted than Bora, with dark circles under her eyes and 3 empty coffee cups on the table beside her. The transformation completed about 6 hours ago. It's been communicating with us ever since. The bombardment? Day One asked. Cancelled. Captain Lee Minho entered the room, carrying a tray of food. Admiral Ko Yejin countermanded General Thross's order at the last second. The weapons were literally firing when she overrode the command. She's probably going to face a tribunal for that. But she saved your life. Saved all of us. Really. Day One tried to process this information. His plan had worked. The impossible gambit had actually succeeded. What happened down there? After I passed out? Dr. Park pulled up a holographic display. It showed the Devourer's transformation in accelerated time. It fractured its own consciousness. Imagine taking a unified mind and deliberately shattering it into millions of pieces, then rebuilding it in a completely different configuration. That's what it did. It fought millions of years of programming and won. The display showed the creature shrinking, compressing, reorganizing. It began releasing the absorbed species' genetic patterns and memories. The actual beings can't be restored because they were too thoroughly integrated. But their knowledge and experiences are preserved. The Sentinel says, it will honor them by protecting life, instead of consuming it. It chose, Day One whispered. It chose, Bora confirmed. Because you showed it how. Because humans showed it that change was possible. Minho set down the food tray. You should eat something, and then you should know that you're being promoted to lieutenant and transferred to the newly created Xenopsychology Division. Apparently, convincing ancient cosmic horrors to change their nature is considered a valuable skill. Before Day One could respond, the door opened and General Thross entered. The insectoid commander looked different somehow. Less rigid, less certain. He approached Day One's bed slowly. Corporal Han, he said in his clicking voice. I owe you an apology. I dismissed your theory. I was prepared to destroy an entire planet rather than consider an alternative. My people have a saying. The jaw cannot conceive of the hand's purpose. You were trying to protect the coalition, Day One said. I understand. Understanding does not excuse my failure. General Thross's antenna drooped in what Day One had learned was a gesture of shame among his species. The humans have taught the coalition a valuable lesson today. You see possibilities where others see only problems. You offer hope where others offer only force. We will not forget this. After the general left, Day One finally ate the food Minho had brought. It tasted like dust, but he forced it down anyway. His mind was still reeling. Everything had changed in less than a day. Over the next week, he recovered slowly. The psychic feedback had done more damage than initially thought. But Dr. Park said he would make a full recovery. During that time, he received visitors. Nam Ji-woo came and told him how she had delayed the bombardment order by exactly 3 seconds, just long enough for Admiral Ko to intervene. She seemed embarrassed by her own bravery. Admiral Ko herself visited, a tall woman with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She explained that the human delegation to the coalition was being restructured. Humans were being placed in diplomatic and psychological advisory positions throughout the fleet. Your species has a unique perspective on conflict resolution, she said. The Coalition needs that perspective now more than ever. But the most important visitor was the Sentinel itself. It communicated through a translation device that Dr. Park had developed. The Sentinel's consciousness was too vast to fit in one human mind anymore, but it could condense its thoughts into something comprehensible. Its first message to Day One was simple. Thank you for showing me choice. Thank you for believing change was possible. I have existed for millions of years in darkness and hunger. Now I understand light and purpose. This is a gift beyond measure. Day One sat by the window and looked down at the creature that had once terrified the galaxy. What will you do now? I will guard the dimensional rifts. There are others like me. Ancient weapons awakening across the galaxy. I can sense them. They are confused and hungry and lost. Just as I was. I will meet them. I will offer them the same choice you offered me. Some may refuse. Some may attack. But some may choose to change. As I did. That's dangerous work. All meaningful work is dangerous. Humans taught me that too. You risk yourselves constantly for purposes beyond mere survival. You reach for stars knowing you might burn. You offer kindness knowing it might be rejected. You hope, despite evidence that hope is illogical. This is what makes you remarkable. The Sentinel paused, its blue glow pulsing thoughtfully. I retain the memories of all the species I consumed. 847 civilizations worth of knowledge and experience. None of them were like you. None of them could have saved me. Only humans, with your contradictory nature and impossible optimism, could see past what I was to what I could become. Over the following months, the changes continued. The Coalition established new first contact protocols based on human diplomatic methods. Instead of approaching new species with shows of force, they led with communication and understanding. It didn't always work, but it worked more often than the old ways. The Sentinel took up its position at the Velthora Rift, the dimensional weak point where it had first emerged. True to its word, it detected other ancient weapons awakening across the galaxy. It communicated with them, offering them the choice to change. Some refused and had to be contained. Some were too damaged to understand. But some chose differently. Slowly, carefully, a network of sentinels began to form, ancient weapons reborn as guardians. Day One found himself at the center of a new division dedicated to understanding and communicating with non-human psychology. Bora and Minho both joined his team. Dr. Park led the research efforts. Together, they developed new methods for bridging the gaps between species, for finding common ground in unexpected places. 6 months after the Velthara incident, Day One stood in his new office aboard the research vessel and read the latest reports. The Coalition was changing, evolving, learning to see conflict as an opportunity for understanding rather than just an obstacle to overcome. It wasn't perfect. Old habits died hard, and there were still those who preferred force to diplomacy. But progress was being made. A message came through on his terminal. It was from the Sentinel. Stationed at its post near the dimensional rift, Lieutenant Han. I have detected another awakening. An ancient weapon called the Harvester has emerged 3 sectors from your position. It is confused and afraid, and beginning to consume a mining colony. The Coalition fleet is responding with military force. I believe this is a mistake. The Harvester can be reached, just as I was reached. But they will need a human. To show them how. Day One looked at the message for a long moment. Then he smiled and began preparing his report for Admiral Ko. Another ancient horror. Another impossible situation. Another chance to prove that even the most broken things could choose to be better. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology, or greater strength, or tactical brilliance. Just the stubborn, impossible belief that anything could change if it wanted to badly enough. The belief that choice mattered, that hope was worth holding on to, that even weapons could learn to be something more. He thought about the Devourer, now the Sentinel, standing guard at the edge of space. He thought about all the species it had consumed, all the civilizations it had destroyed, all the horrors it had committed while trapped by its programming. And he thought about how it had chosen differently when given the chance. Maybe that was what it meant to be human. To see possibilities where others saw only problems. To offer second chances, even to monsters. To believe, against all logic and evidence, that tomorrow could be better than today. Day one opened a communication channel to his team. Bora, Minho, Dr. Park. We have a new mission. Pack your bags. We're going to talk to another ancient weapon. Bora's response came back immediately. Of course we are. Because apparently saving the galaxy once wasn't enough. But Day One could hear the smile in her voice. They were scared. Probably. They were uncertain. Definitely. But they were also curious and determined and impossibly hopeful. They were human. And that made all the difference. He sent his report to Admiral Ko, recommending a diplomatic approach to the Harvester situation. He knew the military commanders would resist. He knew it would be dangerous. He knew there was a very real chance they would fail. But failure was only the end if you chose to stop trying. And humans, stubborn and optimistic and contradictory as they were, never quite knew when to give up. The Sentinel sent one final message that day. Just 2 words that contained everything Day One needed to know. Thank you. Day One typed his response. You're welcome. Now let's go show another ancient horror that it can choose to be something better. He looked out the window at the stars, at the vast galaxy full of dangers and wonders and infinite possibilities. Somewhere out there, an ancient weapon was awakening, confused and afraid and hungry. And somewhere out there, a human team was preparing to meet it, armed with nothing but empathy and hope and the unshakable belief that even the darkest things could find light. The creature that devoured armies had learned to hope, and that changed everything.